Kelley, to close us out tonight, you have something that is strange but true.
Strange but true.
I sure do, and I'm a lover of the weird, so I just was all over this one. This is a really fun article. It's from MSN. It's not really a news article, but it's a list, a little slideshow of some of the biggest Christian hoaxes that have happened throughout the centuries. And there's 16 of them, so there's plenty for everybody. You can share them with your friends. There's a lot of great stuff here, and they range from all the way back to hundreds of years ago to just recently with the ossuary of James. I don't know if anybody remembers that. About 20 years ago, they had found an ossuary, which is a box that holds bones, and it was supposedly of the brother of Jesus that had it. And it did turn out to actually be an ancient ossuary, but the inscription, James, son of Joseph, brother of Jesus, that ended up being a fake. So that was a fun thing. There's a lot of them here, though. I don't want to take any thunder away from anybody. Scott, you want to talk about one of the many fun hoaxes on this show?
Yeah, I mean, this was fun to look at. I mean, it's always, great to see a story like, oh, look at these people, look what they're falling for, all these hoaxes or whatever. But, it's at times like that I like to remind myself that, being gullible and irrational are human traits, and it's not just Christians that or theists that fall for these hoaxes. However, just because hoaxes can victimize anyone, that doesn't let religion off the hook. There's plenty of research that makes a strong connection between religious thinking and religious upbringing and belief in fantastical stories and conspiracy theories. For example, I'm sure many of us have probably remember this article. It's entitled Judgments About Fact and Fiction by Children from Religious and Non-Religious Backgrounds. And they found that exposure to religious ideas has a powerful impact on children's differentiation between reality and fiction, not just for religious stories, but also for fantastical stories. So there's plenty of meat there. There was also an article in the British Journal of Social Psychology that had similar results, but in relation to things like conspiracy stories. So at the very least, it doesn't show that that necessarily Christians or theists are wrong because they fall for these hoaxes, but it does definitely show that that there's some flawed thinking going on there, that there might not be as sure about things as they thought. Let's dig into some of these here. Do you want me to go first, or Secular? What do you think? What was your favorite?
Yeah. And I think that was a really good point you just brought up, Scott. I'm glad you did that and mentioned that, because yeah, we can all, doesn't matter what group we belong to. It doesn't matter how much, we read or how intelligent we are. Like, we can all be prey to this stuff. But so one of the things I really liked, there were a couple of them that were mentioned here that I've heard people talk about, like in online discussions and stuff. And so the one that stood out to me was the Cardiff Giant. So basically, in a nutshell, long time ago, I want to say late 1800s, this guy was out supposedly digging a well in his backyard and found like this 10-foot chunk of gypsum that seemed like it was a person, like it looked like a person. And they started going around and saying, hey, this is actually a giant. This is one of like the Nephilim that are talked about in the Bible and stuff. And it again is like this thing was like 10 feet tall and weighed like 3,000 pounds or something. But funny enough, and Kelley may be able to tell us a little bit on this, but like, not all like rocks and stuff like are everywhere in the world. Surprisingly, it has a lot to do with like soil composition and time and pressure, and it's this whole thing. And so, one of the things that was really weird was, there were a couple of people very early on when this was on display that were like, hey, this doesn't seem right. Like that, it probably wouldn't be this here in such a quantity. Funny enough, as a couple of the years went on, the fella himself, George Hull, who actually, you know, kind of spearheaded this whole thing, just blew the lid off of it at one point and said, yeah, me and some buddies, we dug up a huge slab of gypsum over in Iowa. I sent it to this stone carver and he made this, thing. And even though it has been thoroughly debunked, again, I was just, my eyes just, practically popped out of my skull because I was like, oh my gosh, I've heard people talk about this and say that it's real. So yeah, totally BS on this one, folks. But you actually can still see this statue on display, I think, somewhere in New York. There's a museum that still holds it. So very, very, very interesting, but very, very thoroughly debunked, like pretty early on. But Kelley, you had one that was really cool. What was your favorite?
I do. My favorite one was the Holy Fire, but I have to say something about the Cardiff Giant because you brought it up. Interestingly enough, P.T. Barnum tried to buy the Cardiff Giant, and he was turned down. So he had one made. He actually hoaxed the hoax. So, and I'm not sure if the one that's on display in New York is the real Cardiff Giant or the hoax Cardiff Giant.
Oh my gosh,
the real
Giant.
Yeah,
one of them that I read about it. The real hoax, the real fake, right? But one of these that really caught my eye was the Holy Fire, because it's a miracle that happens every year at Easter time in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in the Holy Land in Jerusalem. And yeah, right, that's what I thought too. I see your facial expression over there. And I was like, wow, why did I never hear about this if this is a miracle that happens every year? And supposedly a light emanates off of a slab of granite that was supposedly where Jesus's body was laid after he was crucified on the cross. And this light spontaneously lights torches, candles, and lamps in the room. And then the high priest of the church will bring out the fire. So all the he'll bring it out on a torch. They're actually a torch bearer, and they light all the pilgrims' candles and torches and lamps with this holy light, right? And I was like, wow, this is really miraculous. Everybody should know about this. Well, it turns out that they've been faking it for hundreds of years, unfortunately, because it sounded so cool. What it probably is, and we don't know for sure, but phosphorus will spontaneously combust when it's in contact with air. And you can coat it with a solvent that will basically time the point where it bursts into flame. So you can actually have something magically burst into flame in front of somebody's eyes just by using this chemical. This was known in ancient times too, so it's a pretty good explanation. Now, Archbishop Gerasan Theophanes, and I'm hoping I didn't butcher that name, but probably did, he states that the holy fire does not light up in a miraculous way, but in a natural way, and that it is then blessed by the patriarch. And he added that we deceive the believers, letting them believe that it is a miracle. This is unacceptable and does not reflect well on us. And according to Theophanes, the fraud of the miracle was invented by Catholic crusaders back in those days, and it was just continued on by the Greek Orthodox patriarchy. So, and apparently that's why I never heard of this great miracle that happens every year, because it's just a hoax. It's not a miracle at all. But what a fun one to me.
Yeah. And come on, God. Why not do a miracle every year just to like tell everybody and remind everybody and stuff? But no, that one was pretty fun. I enjoyed that one too. You also had a pretty good one, Scott. What stood out to you?
Yeah, well, the stories were all so fascinating. It's amazing. I mean, I love just watching people and how people think and how they react. This one, though, stood out to me, and I think you'll see why when I start telling you about it. It's called the Letter of Lentilis, and it's a letter supposedly written around the time of Jesus's life, and purports to give a physical description of Jesus. And so I didn't want to just see the debunking. I wanted to see what other Christians had to say about this. So I looked it up in the Catholic Encyclopedia at newadvent.org. And here's what they had to say about the Letter of Lentilis. I'll skip to the good part here. It says, there has appeared in our times, and there still lives, a man of great power called Jesus Christ. His hair is the color of the ripe hazelnut, straight down to the ears, but below the ears, wavy and curled, with a bluish and bright reflection flowing over his shoulders. And so, looking at our panel here today, I can't imagine anybody would ever look like that. It's parted at the top of the head after the pattern of the Nazarenes. His beard is abundant, and the color of his hair not long, but divided at the chin. His aspect is simple and mature. His eyes are changeable and bright. And so clearly this was written by somebody who must have seen the Lord, or the Son of Man on earth. And so so I was curious as to how did they decide this was a hoax. And so this is what they had to say at the end here. The Letter of Lentilis is certainly apocryphal. There never was a governor of Jerusalem. No procurator of Judea is known to have been called Lentilis. A Roman governor would not have addressed the Senate. This was a letter to the Senate, but the emperor. A Roman writer would not have employed these expressions. The former two are Hebrew idioms. The third is taken from the New Testament. And so it's nice to see that there can be some critical thinking happening there when pressed. I'd be curious as to the motivation of the criticism, but it was interesting because there's a guy. It basically they were saying, if there's no pics, then it didn't happen. Basically, that's what that's what they said. And so it was just interesting to me because you could tell this person just had a perfect vision. Coincidentally, very similar to the images that have been produced, the paintings and the so-called, the images of Christ and that kind of thing. And so it reminded me of the how when Close Encounters of the Third Kind came out, and then all of a sudden, all of the alien stories looked like the aliens in that movie. Yeah. Same thing here. We have this common vision of what Jesus looked like. And what do you know? We have a letter here written from that time to justify everything we've been saying. Go figure. But the Catholic Church has thoroughly denounced this, and it was interesting to see. It was interesting to see, I think.
Yeah, and like Kelley said right at the beginning, folks, there are a lot of these that this link, that's below in the show notes and then posted on the nonprofit's Facebook fan page. Go check these out. There are some really, really interesting ones. I mean, I really enjoyed the Priory of Sion one as well, because that's something that probably a lot of us are familiar with, this kind of like tracing Jesus's lineage to like some secret society and yada, yada, yada. I mean, the whole Da Vinci Code stuff.
You'd think they'd make a movie about that or something.
It's maybe two. Yeah. But what do you all think? I mean, what's the problem with these hoaxes? Is there a problem? I mean, is it good that we've debunked these? Kelley?
I think it is. And I think it as you said, this isn't just unique to Christianity. This can happen to anybody, something like this. So it goes to show you how important it is to keep a skeptical view of the world and really do some research and check things out before you just take them at face value. I did want to point out that several of them were like additions to the Bible. And I'm making air quotes when I say additions. And it kind of reminded me of another famous addition to the Bible, the Book of Mormon. Just saying. So, but
I think that would be on the list.
Most of these were yeah, you'd think it would have been, right? But a lot of these were these lost writings that seemed to appear centuries after they were supposedly written. So most of them, like the story behind them, isn't even plausible or a really good story, and they're just going to be taken up by gullible people, and apparently they were. So you can always find people to believe bullshit, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah, and strangely enough, in all of these hoaxes, when they were debunked, it was never using a holy book. It's weird how that happened. I don't know if there's something to that. It was something they used some other thing is sima something. I don't know, but yeah, wasn't religion that debunked all this stuff. Scott, any other thoughts before we kind of head out?
Sure, sure. I mean, like we've said a couple times that it's not just religious people that fall victim to hoaxes. It's something that happens to all of us at times. But I hope that there's a message here, and that it's humbling to a group of people that sometimes can overstate their case. And there was an interesting at the end. We go. There was like a several of these things, and you're going through them. And you're laughing at some of them. You're getting curious on some of them. But right at the end there, right at the very last one, they talked about Noah's Ark and how that, the Noah's Ark findings were a hoax. But the last sentence of the article was wait a minute, what did they just say? And here's the sentence. While Noah's Ark itself is yet to be found, science has confirmed that the Great Flood could have actually happened.
Yeah,
I don't know. It kind of all of the good, all of the good feelings that were being built up with the critical thinking and the thoughtfulness, and it was just like, oh, they throw it all away at the end there. It's just like, okay, all bets are off. Chaos reigns here.
We were this close, y'all. We were this close to getting all the way through.
Almost made it. Almost.
Yeah.
Wow.
Missed it by that much.
Oh, yeah. I think it, you both have said it a couple of times, and I think it's always worth repeating that, anybody can be taken in by these hoaxes. When people are looking to try and trick people, it absolutely can happen, and you're not safe from it just because you've stepped away from a religious belief system, or you no longer think, a holy book is the direct word of God. It's unfortunately, it's something that can hit every single one of us. Kelley, any final thoughts? And then we'll take us out.
Final thoughts. I guess, have fun. That's what we did today. We talked about some nasty stuff and looked ahead at some things that are getting better, and we ended up on a fun note. And I think that's a good way to live. Keep looking forward to the future, make changes happen, and try to have fun. So
I agree. I like that.
Thanks for having me again. Like I said, I'm always happy and surprised to be here. So
we love it, man. I love hanging out with you and Scott, and some of the other awesome people that are here at the Nonprofits. We do have a good bunch of people that come on, so it is always a fun time. And
not with a good bunch.
That's right.
We don't have a good. I was gonna say we don't have a good bunch. We have a great bunch.
Yeah.